I stood gripping the microphone, the party noise fading to silence as Lynn's radiant smile turned sharper, nervous. My pulse hammered as I prepared to let out words I couldn't hold anymore. I started the speech cautiously, glancing at Lynn, who sat glowing beside Mark, her proud smile faltering just slightly, like she sensed danger in my tone. The words felt heavier than I thought. "She has taught me about secrets," I said, and the collective silence in the room vibrated as Mark turned toward her slightly, puzzled. When Lynn's eyes met mine, her expression changed from radiant happiness to fearful recognition. She subtly shook her head, silently pleading me to stop. I couldn't look away, not anymore. I let the truth slip out, my voice trembling but firm. "Sometimes people choose to hide things from the people they love," I said. Gasps rippled across the guests, the sound like waves crashing against the delicate wedding scene. Mark turned fully toward Lynn now, his brow deeply furrowed. Lynn opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The guests at the surrounding tables exchanged whispers. A tidal wave of murmured shock engulfing the hall. I pushed forward, driven by heavy memory of her late night, whispered phone calls to someone else. I couldn't stay silent knowing what I know, I confessed, each word trembling. Mark rose slowly from his seat. His jaw tightened as he stared down at Lynn, now pale as her lips quivered. She glanced away, desperate to escape his piercing gaze. The room wasn't just stunned anymore. It felt frozen. Lynn moved stiffly, attempting to stand, but her shaking legs betrayed her as she stumbled slightly. Mark leaned closer, his voice barely audible but sharp enough to cut through the silence. "Who is it?" he demanded. And the room seemed to collectively inhale. Lynn stammered, unable to form a coherent reply. Her cheeks flushed crimson as she clutched the back of her chair for balance. Words caught in her tight throat. I couldn't stay silent any longer. "It's someone named Ian," I admitted, looking directly at her, my voice wavering as gasps and murmurs filled the room like thunder. Mark stepped back abruptly, as if he'd been struck. His hands dropped, lifeless on either side, horror etched into his face. Lynn looked devastated, her shoulders sagging. The guests started to rise from their seats slowly, their curiosity overtaking decorum as they watched us like characters in a live drama, frozen by the spectacle. My heart raced as I saw Lynn crumble, her hands covering her face, mascara streaking her cheeks, while muffled sobs escaped through trembling fingers. Mark stormed away from the table, his glossy shoes clicking on the marble floor. The crisp sound echoed, followed by Lynn's pleading cry, "Mark, wait!" I let the microphone slip from my hands, the sound of it hitting the floor echoing behind Mark's retreat. All the attention stayed on her, broken and begging. Lynn slumped back down in her chair, her shoulders trembling under the weight of the truth exposed. Guests avoided her gaze as whispers filled the room. I walked slowly away from the stage, my feet dragging like stone, numb to the tension and pain enveloping the hall. My chest felt hollow. I stepped out into the cool night air, my lungs straining against the chill as tears rolled silently down my face. Finally alone, I couldn't stop crying. Behind me, I heard the distant sound of Lynn shouting through the hall. "I loved him first!" Brown's anguished scream was louder than her guests' murmurs. I turned back slightly, just to see Mark stepping outside the hall himself, looking like he'd lost everything. His suit seemed heavy and rumpled under the weight of betrayal. Mark didn't notice me standing there by the side, as he stared into the empty parking lot, shaking his head, hands shoved into his pockets in defeat. I left before either of them could see me, walking onto deserted streets that seemed eerily quiet. I didn't feel vindicated, just a strange emptiness. Later that night, I sat alone on my couch, staring blankly at my phone as it lit up with messages from family. They all wanted answers, but I couldn't respond. I opened one message from Lynn. "You've ruined me." Her words clawed at my mind, and I sat shaking, choking on the weight of it all. The next morning was quieter. For a moment, I thought everything had reset, until I read the headline, "Fiancé walks out after wedding secret revealed." I knew I'd changed everything, not just her life, but the whole family's. The wedding, the affair, everything was a razor that cut through all our connections. I sat realizing words were weapons too. Irrevocable. Lynn's broken portrait would linger in me. It wasn't revenge anymore, but wreckage, I thought, while the quiet broke nothing. I found Mom crying in the kitchen, clutching an old, faded photo in her trembling hands. She wouldn't tell me what was wrong, just begged me to leave it alone. I overheard her whispering on the phone late at night. She sounded desperate, saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Whoever she was talking to hung up abruptly. The next morning, Dad stared into his coffee cup, like it held the answers to life's big questions. Mom avoided his eyes, and I felt an icy wall between them. While cleaning the attic, I stumbled on a locked box buried under old blankets. The lock looked ancient, but the box wasn't dusty. It had been opened recently. That night at the dinner table, I casually asked about the box. Mom's fork froze mid-air, and Dad knocked over his glass. They exchanged terrified glances. Weeks later, Dad sat me down in the living room. His hands were shaking as he whispered, "Some truths hurt more than the lies." He said no more. I couldn't stop myself. I broke the lock on the attic box with a hammer and opened it. Inside were letters, photos, and divorce papers from decades ago. One letter was addressed to Mom, signed, Linda, and dated 2 years before I was born. It said, "You promised to cut ties. Have you told him everything?" When I confronted Mom, she broke down entirely. She revealed Dad had a secret child, a sibling I never knew existed. She begged me not to tell him I knew. Dad seemed too calm after my confrontation. It felt unnatural, like he was acting oblivious. But when I mentioned Linda, his face turned pale instantly. That evening, overhearing their heated argument through the walls was like listening to strangers. Mom's voice cracked. "You said she'd never come back." Linda showed up at our door the next week. Her smile was tight, forced, and the resemblance between her and Dad was unmistakable. My heart sunk. Over coffee in the living room, Linda quietly admitted she was Dad's daughter. Mom wouldn't say a word, avoiding any eye contact like the room was on fire. I drove Linda back to her motel. She confessed Dad had visited her secretly for years. She'd given him an ultimatum to tell us, or she would. Back home, I told Mom what Linda had said. Her face was steel, cold, and immovable, like she decided 10 years ago how she'd handle this moment. Dad found me upstairs later. His voice cracked as he tried to explain, "I wanted to protect you, everyone." It was too broken to sound comforting. A few days later, Dad packed Linda's portrait into the box and dropped it back in the attic. He said he'd do anything to keep this family whole. Linda sent me a text. "Whatever happens, I'll never hate you." I stared at it for hours, every word pressing on my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. Mom moved Dad out of their shared bedroom. For the first time in years, I heard her crying the way she did in the kitchen that night. I asked Dad why he was still here. He said, "Because you asked me to stay." I didn't know if that felt more comforting or crushing. Weeks passed, and Linda stopped answering my texts. The silence felt heavier than every conversation we'd had. It was an ache I couldn't describe. One evening, Dad stared out the window as the rain hit like needles. He muttered, "I'll go if she wants me to," leaving the decision to Mom. Mom handed Dad Linda's motel address and said, "You can try making things right there. You gave her less of you than you gave us." Dad walked out silently. His footsteps on the wet pavement outside sounded heavier than ever. None of us watched him leave. Linda called once Dad arrived. She was sobbing so hard I could barely make sense of her words. But she asked me, did he really care about me? Ever? Months later, Dad moved back. Linda left town for good after their meeting, and the quiet she left behind dug deeper than her presence ever did. Mom kept Linda's letter on the mantel, folded neatly under a weight. She said it reminded her what we almost lost. I chose not to ask further. I walked into the attic one day, hoping to find closure. Instead, the empty walls made me wonder if secrets ever truly disappeared. Mom and Dad sat in the garden together, side by side but wordless. The years between them felt like an unspoken language I wouldn't ever learn. I realized we weren't bound by what we hide. It's how we survive what comes to light that defines us. It was heavy, but it gave me peace. I walked into the dimly lit diner, my heart racing, sensing something was off before even speaking to him. He was sitting at the booth, staring down at his phone, avoiding eye contact like he was guilty about something. I sat across from him, trying not to cry, and asked why he had been so distant lately. He heaved a sigh and said we needed to talk about us. My stomach sank. I could feel the heartbreak coming. His words hit me like a train. "I don't think this is working anymore." I just froze, unable to respond. After what felt like minutes of silence, I stood up abruptly, telling him he owed me more explanation than this. He admitted he'd met someone else, and my breath caught. Everything blurred except the crushing betrayal. I grabbed my coat and stormed out, desperate to escape the suffocating diner and my breaking heart. Walking home in the rain, I replayed his words again and again, my chest heavy with the sting of betrayal. At home, I collapsed onto my bed and stared at my phone, wondering if I wanted answers or just closure. I texted him one more time. "How long?" Then I cried until the phone screen became too blurry to see. The next day at work, I tried to keep it together, but every time someone said his name, I almost lost it. My coworker noticed my distress and gently asked if I was okay, but I couldn't say the truth about the breakup. Days turned into weeks, and I avoided mutual friends, terrified someone might mention his new relationship. I decided to block him everywhere. It felt like ripping off a band-aid, but left me hollow and unmoored. Walking by the local coffee shop one evening, I thought I saw him inside, laughing with someone new. I ducked behind the wall, my heart pounding, and cursed myself for even pausing to look. I sat down in the park afterwards, staring at the dark sky. No clue how I'd get through this. A stranger walked by and offered me their umbrella. That small kindness shattered me. I couldn't stop crying again. The next day, I finally opened up to my best friend about everything, pouring out weeks of bottled-up emotions. She told me he wasn't worth my tears and promised to help me remember who I was before him. Weeks later, I cleaned out my apartment and found the necklace he had given me. It felt like dead weight. I dropped the necklace into a donation box, freeing myself from the last physical reminder of him. Soon after, I ran into an old friend who made me laugh for the first time in weeks, and it felt like fresh air. Through slow steps, I rediscovered pieces of myself: reading, yoga, painting. The little joys I had set aside for him. Months passed, and old wounds grew lighter. I still felt the whisper of pain, but it no longer held me hostage. One evening, I saw his name in my messages again, but this time, I didn't even feel the urge to respond. I stood overlooking the city skyline, feeling the chapters of us finally closing with grace rather than bitterness. I met someone new who reminded me love doesn't always hurt, and I started believing in my own heart again. Looking back now, I realize that lost love is just that, a loss, not the death of who I am. I overheard him say he couldn't see a future with me, his words like daggers. As I stood frozen behind the door, my stomach turned as I heard him laughing freely, oblivious to the pain he was causing, my heart racing erratically. I stumbled into the kitchen, each step weighted with the realization crashing over me like a tidal wave. I clung to the countertop for support, my mind spinning, as tears welled up uncontrollably in my eyes. His voice grew softer, and I realized he was comforting someone else, the betrayal echoing like a haunting melody. I retreated to my bedroom, needing to escape his voice, feeling the room spin with disbelief. Collapsing onto the bed, everything inside me felt like it was crumbling, the ceiling blurrier with each passing second. Sobbing into the pillow, I couldn't suppress the painful memories replaying like a broken record. I jolted up, the sudden silence outside my door hinting at change, my heart frozen in anticipation. As I cautiously opened the door, I saw him, not alone, but talking softly to someone new. My heart shattered. I retreated to the living room, confronting him amidst the quiet as he looked up startled. He stammered an apology, the insincerity transparent, as if he were shielding something or someone from me. I challenged him, my voice breaking, demanding the truth, the tension stretching between us like an electric wire. He hesitated, emotions conflicting in his expression, and finally, he admitted meeting someone new. My world trembling. I stepped back, absorbing his words, the room feeling smaller, its walls closing in on me. Amidst the suffocating tension, a strange calm descended, as if I stood on the precipice of something transformative. I found the strength to walk away, leaving everything behind, the echo of my steps marking a new beginning. The fresh air hit my face as I stepped outside, the city lights twinkling like scattered hopes across the skyline. I walked aimlessly, the street somehow comforting, each step easing the burden on my heart. An unexpected rain drizzled down, mingling with my tears, each drop expressing the unspoken. The rain cleared my mind, and suddenly I realized the freedom within grasp, my spirit unburdening. I found myself at the park, the tranquility soothing, the night air carrying whispers of new beginnings. A stranger's smile warmed my heart, a silent promise that life would continue to surprise me. Returning home, the apartment seemed different, like a fresh canvas, ready for new stories to unfold. I rearranged my room, each change a step towards reclaiming my space, my sanctuary breathing differently. As night fell, I lit candles, their glow casting soft shadows that danced around my newfound peace. Sinking into the armchair, I curled up with a book, my heart finally finding solace in stillness. I thought about the past days, the pain, a fading echo, overshadowed by resilience. The new dawn arrived gently, a promise of brighter tomorrows that seemed almost tangible. Wrapping myself in the promise of a new day, I embraced the brink, ready for whatever lay ahead. I remembered walking into the cafe that afternoon, unsuspecting and eager to surprise him. One of those rare sunny days that felt like a fresh start. Through the glass, I saw him sitting across from her, laughing. His hand lingered too long on hers to be just friendly. My heart dropped. I stayed hidden outside, just watching as he handed her a small gift box with a grin as wide as the sky. I finally stepped inside, my jaw tight, feeling my stomach churn when they didn't notice me at first. His smile froze when he saw me. I asked him whose hands he was holding just minutes ago. The silence between us stretched too long before he stuttered. "It's not what you think," she chimed in too loudly. "We're just colleagues." But her guilty tone didn't match her wide-eyed insistence. My gut told me everything I needed to know. I laughed bitterly and turned away, muttering something sarcastic that made them both squirm. I didn't even finish it. I just walked out. I sat in my parked car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, trying to keep from screaming or crying. My phone buzzed repeatedly. His name flashed on the screen every time. I couldn't bring myself to answer any of his calls. I paced around my apartment that evening, rehearsing words, rewriting fiery responses, but nothing seemed to fully match the weight of the betrayal. When he knocked on the door, I froze. Seeing his face, sheepish and desperate, only deepened the ache in my chest. He stumbled over apologies, each one weaker and filled with excuses. While I refused to let him step further inside, I asked if he loved her. The hesitation in his eyes said more than his rushed denial ever could. I told him I deserved more than half-truths, an empty reassurance. His blank stare said that was a taller order than he could fulfill. I closed the door on him and leaned against it, my knees weak, finally feeling like something had shattered irreparably. Later, as I wiped my face, I realized I couldn't stay passive in something so murky. Truth was always the ultimate weapon. Scrolling through my phone, I pieced together patterns from past messages, late nights and little white lies that suddenly glared like neon signs. I messaged the blonde woman directly and asked if she knew he had a girlfriend. The read receipt marked silence that hit harder than any reply. When, she finally replied at dawn. Her words shattered every excuse he had fed me. She was oblivious to my existence. I didn't bother confronting him again. All my energy went into dragging every piece of his deceit out into the digital light. Posting screenshots and recounting details of his lies was the most cathartic moment I'd had in months. Truth was my revenge. Responses flooded in, others who had stories of him weaving manipulations like he was testing a craft. I wasn't alone, and neither was she. The blonde messaged again, this time thanking me, apologizing. She told me she ended things with him immediately. It felt strange to regain a sense of calm amidst the wreckage. The world seemed clearer, colder, but somehow more honest. I boxed up everything he ever gave me, every reminder, and placed it outside in the early sunlight, feeling lighter with every step I took. I didn't even wait for him to pick his things up. I left them there and stepped into the park nearby with my coffee, breathing freedom. Seeing couples stroll hand in hand still stung, but I reminded myself that letting go was my first step out of the fire. Oddly, as the sun rose higher, I felt nothing but possibility. My world felt like it belonged to me again. By the time I reached home, the weight was entirely gone. I embraced the silence like an old friend. I vowed to never again settle for less than full, searing honesty, and that promise felt like my strongest armor yet. I still remember the gut-wrenching moment I found out he wasn't faithful. It felt like time stopped. My heart shattered into pieces, scattered across that kitchen floor. He was there, in front of me, with that guilty look. His eyes refused to meet mine. Silence stretched unbearably between us. I clutched my phone tighter, the evidence glaring on the screen, a message from her. My hand shook as I tried to process it. He stumbled through excuses, his voice faltering with every ridiculous reason. My head spun with disbelief as his deceit unraveled. I couldn't listen anymore. Pain carried me to the bedroom, seeking refuge from the overwhelming agony. I sank onto the bed, tears streaming down, soaking the pillow. The betrayal hurt more than I could bear. The room felt suffocating, yet I couldn't move. Shadows crept across the walls as the evening sun faded away outside. Hope dwindled with each sob. I thought love was supposed to be different, not this empty ache that had taken its place. A stark silence overtook the house, broken only by the sound of my deep, ragged breaths. It all felt painfully surreal. I spotted the framed photo on the nightstand. Us, smiling, unknowing of the storm ahead. I knocked it over in frustration. As the frame crashed to the floor, its shattering echoed my oddly calm resignation, setting resolve in motion. Something had to change. I walked to the bathroom to splash water on my face, washing away the tears. A sense of clarity started to form. Returning to the living room, I faced him again. This time my voice was steady, stronger with the realization of my own worth. He sat on the couch, head in hands, a picture of remorse, or maybe just defeat. I wasn't sure, but it seemed pale now. There was no screaming, just a quiet understanding. Our eyes met, and I felt the finality, the severed connection between us. I told him I needed time to think, to breathe, and stepped outside, letting the cool air embrace me. I felt lighter somehow. The night sky above seemed boundless, full of possibilities. As I walked down the street, I felt the weight of my decision sink in. Each step carried a mixture of apprehension and newfound freedom. My mind was racing with what lay ahead, a bittersweet progression. I paused to sit on a nearby bench, the world softly whispering around me. I needed this moment to gather all my scattered thoughts. Memories flashed vividly. Laughter, shared secrets, now tainted by deceit. The pictures in my mind faded like an old film strip. As dawn approached, the sky began to lighten, pinks and oranges bleeding into the horizon, promising a new start despite everything. I turned back towards the house, knowing I wasn't going back, but marching forward from this early morning onward. The door clicked softly as I closed it behind me, breathing in deeply, feeling the shift from confusion to clarity. He was still there. The apartment felt different, less binding. I knew we needed to talk, not about us, but about what happened next. Our conversation was gentle, guided by necessity rather than emotion. The words seemed to slowly untangle what had been tightly knotted. We understood the finality without bitterness, acknowledging a past that couldn't be rewritten, but also a future that awaited our separate ways. As we parted, a hint of nostalgia lingered. Yet, there was an unmistakable acceptance, a closure that was both liberating and melancholic. I ventured out, the day unfolding before me like a blank canvas. It felt like a second chance, albeit with scars that were reminders. There was a certain sweetness in reclaiming my own life, an uncolored freedom that once seemed impossible in the shadow of heartbreak. With each passing moment, I grew more certain of my own strength, surprised by the resilience I discovered within myself. I stood outside his apartment, the cold wind biting at my cheeks, realizing he had shut me out completely after our fight. I heard muffled laughter and saw shadows moving through the curtains, signaling he wasn't alone inside. Peeking closer, I spotted her, his ex, lounging on the couch with a confident smirk, drink in hand. My stomach churned as I backed away, my thoughts racing, questioning everything about his loyalty. I wandered through the city streets, the neon lights above blurry through the tears filling my eyes. An old friend called suddenly and invited me over, sensing just from my hello that something wasn't right. At her place, she handed me a blanket and hot tea, trying to calm my trembling hands. I spilled everything, his distance, the fight, and the gut-wrenching scene I'd just witnessed, and she listened for hours. Late into the night, she suggested I deserve answers and balance instead of suffering in silence. Against my better judgment, I decided to text him, asking for clarity, knowing I couldn't pretend anymore. I waited for his response, staring at my phone until the screen faded, my heart pounding wildly. A reply finally arrived, vague and defensive, making my blood boil more than easing my pain. I snapped, sending him a long message about trust, boundaries, and how I deserved better. As I pressed send, adrenaline coursed and my chest felt tight, but underneath there was a flicker of empowerment. The next morning, sunlight broke through, highlighting the distance I felt, but also the steps I had taken. Scrolling through his social feed, I saw them together, laughing over breakfast. My stomach sunk like a stone. Before I could spiral too far, I promised myself I'd find a release, a reminder of my own worth. I spent the day alone at a museum, letting art and history remind me of everything larger than heartbreak. While inspecting a painting, a stranger asked me about it. We ended up chatting for hours about life and perspective. As we exchanged contact information, I realized that letting certain people go makes space for others to enter. That evening, a notification popped up, a voice message from him, angry and blaming me for overreacting. I didn't listen long. I cut him off mid-sentence and blocked his number, releasing a breath I didn't know I held. The silence afterward felt profound, like stopping a storm mid-wind, leaving room for a quieter peace. Days passed, and I started focusing on work and hobbies I'd neglected, surprised by how freeing it felt. Without realizing it, the ache softened, I wasn't thinking about him every waking moment anymore. One afternoon, I strolled downtown, watching strangers pass by, the air lighter than I remembered it being. I saw him across the street. He didn't look up, too absorbed in his phone, and it didn't sting like it used to. Letting him fade into the background, I wandered farther, relishing how good it felt to keep moving forward. The weight was no longer on my chest. Life seemed bigger now, full of space for me to breathe. As I sat under the fading daylight, I realized the chaos never defined me. It was my decision to grow beyond it. I was shaking as I saw him leave the cafe with her, their laughter echoing in the rainy street. I couldn't believe my boyfriend had so effortlessly lied to me. I followed them, my steps slow and deliberate behind the wet pavement, unsure if I was ready for what I'd find, but needing to know the truth. Through the dim light of a small bookstore window, I saw them leaning close, whispering like they shared secrets I wasn't a part of. My heart sank deeper. Her smile was confident. Her hand brushed his arm, and for a moment, I wasn't sure who he was anymore. The betrayal felt bone deep. I didn't approach them right then. I just stood frozen, the rain soaking through my jacket and chilling me to my core while life moved on around me. Later that evening, I confronted him at his apartment. He acted dumb, pretended I was overreacting. His deflection made me angrier. He was hiding something. His phone buzzed as we argued. When I snatched it, he tried to stop me. Her name was all over the messages, lies unraveling faster than I could keep up. I stormed out, phone still in hand. Outside, the cold air felt like shards against my damp cheeks. This wasn't heartbreak, it was war. In my room, under weak lamplight, I read it all. Every text thread, each flirty exchange. The truth was staring back at me in bold, undeniable letters. I couldn't cry anymore. Instead, I started typing back to her, not with anger, but cold precision. I wanted her to understand exactly what she had taken from me. When she responded with smugness, I knew exactly what needed to happen. This wasn't just about him anymore. She had declared herself my enemy. I spent hours crafting a plan, going through every trace of her online presence, each photo, every detail. This was going to be precise and personal. The next day, I dressed carefully, choosing confidence over anger. It was going to be a delicate game, and I planned to enjoy every calculated move. I showed up at her workplace, clutching the necklace that was supposed to be my anniversary gift. I decided it belonged in her hands now. When she saw me, her face faltered, but quickly shifted into a smirk. She didn't know I wasn't here to beg. I was here to shake her throne. Slamming the necklace box onto her desk, I told her it was hers now, just like how she had claimed him. She didn't laugh. She narrowed her eyes. I didn't wait for her response. Walking out, I could feel her power shrivel just momentarily, enough for me to realize something about myself had changed. He called later, desperate to explain the sudden chaos I tossed his way. I didn't answer. I'd already decided he wasn't my story anymore. Weeks later, her photos changed. Captions became less smug. The energy in her eyes dulled. I wasn't the only casualty of her games. I moved on. It wasn't immediately fulfilling, but being free of their drama meant reclaiming my thoughts and space. That was the real win for me. Months later, I saw him at a coffee shop. He looked tired, older even. My feelings didn't stir. I felt untouchable, in a way I'd never felt before. We exchanged quick, indifferent smiles, and he returned to his book while I sipped my coffee. That chapter of my life was finally closed. Someone new joined me at my table. When she smiled warmly, I felt relief cascade through me. There was life beyond betrayal after all. I let myself laugh again, something I hadn't done in months. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't looking back. That night, I packed up the last traces of old memories and locked them away. My room felt lighter, like it had breathed alongside me. Each morning felt brighter. The weight of betrayal had melted into the growth of something better, an undeniable self-worth I would never abandon. Sometimes I'd see her name come up in conversations or fleeting mentions online, but they felt distant, like memories from another lifetime. When someone asked about my ex, I simply responded, "Not my type." It wasn't bitterness, just a truth that felt easy to own. I realized revenge wasn't about hurting someone. It was reclaiming what was mine, my self-respect, my time, and my happiness. I didn't win, I didn't lose. I just walked away with my head high, knowing I owned a story I would happily leave behind. I sat in the kitchen, my hands shaking as I read the last text from him, the harsh words frozen on the screen. The walls seemed to close in as I paced, replaying the argument in my head, questioning everything I'd said. I heard the distant hum of his car pulling into the driveway, cutting through the eerie silence. The door creaked open, and he walked in without looking at me, his face cold like I wasn't even there. I held my breath trying to find the right words. All that came out was a meek, "What's happened to us?" He didn't answer. Instead, he brushed past me and headed to the bedroom, leaving an icy void in his wake. I followed half-heartedly, my feet dragging as though each step was pulling me back. He was cleaning out a drawer, his movements sharp and deliberate. I already knew what he was doing. I asked him why, but my voice cracked. He glanced over his shoulder briefly, shaking his head like I was a fool. The quiet was overwhelming, louder than any screaming we'd done in the past. He almost seemed relieved I didn't fight back. Without saying anything, he walked out of the room, the slamming of the front door echoing through the silence. I looked out the window and saw him standing by the car, the rain starting to drizzle, blurring the world outside. For a moment, he turned back as if he had something left to say. But he didn't, just got in the car and left. The house felt emptier than ever. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the old coffee mug he left behind. I wandered into the living room, spotting the half-folded blanket we'd fought over who'd take weeks ago. Hours passed, and all I could hear was the rain tapping against the glass, like the world itself was grieving. I opened a hidden storage box under the bed, uncovering a stack of old photos taken on our best days. I smiled briefly at the photo of us on the hiking trip, but that smile faded into quiet tears. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. My heart skipped as I rose, but it wasn't who I imagined. It was a delivery worker bringing his left-behind stuff back, a final reminder that he was really gone. I sank into the couch holding the box, the weight of all things unsaid crushing me. Inside the box was the necklace he'd given me years ago. Its broken chain felt symbolic now. I grabbed my coat and walked outside, the rain soaking through, as if trying to wash away my heartbreak. I found myself at the cafe where we'd spent so many weekends. Now standing outside trying to breathe through the ache, I sat inside sipping coffee, staring at the empty chair across from me, imagining him there one last time. The barista hesitantly wiped the table, giving me a look of sympathy as I fumbled to hold back tears. When I got home, I tossed the necklace into the drawer, like it deserved to be buried with everything else. The rain stopped, but the quiet it left behind felt louder than before. A knock came again. This time, it was him. His face wasn't angry, but sad, like he wanted something back. We stood there, neither saying a word, until it became clear the silence itself was the answer. I was standing in the kitchen, staring at the letter he left. It was over, just like that. After 7 years of building a life together, I couldn't bring myself to sit down, pacing the room like a ghost, my thoughts a mess of anger and heartbreak. I picked up his mug from the table, still half full with coffee. It smelled bitter, like him now, like what he did. My phone buzzed. It was him. His words were cold, a checklist about logistics. No apology, no sadness, just business. I stepped outside into the cold, phone still in my hand. The sky was gray, like it felt this whole town hated color today. I started driving aimlessly. Every street looked the same, but each cheat lied buried somewhere in these backyards. Hours later, I parked by a coffee shop where I used to meet him. It felt wrong, but I needed him erased somehow. Inside, a latte trembled in my hand. Couples were smiling all around me, oblivious, like ghosts from a life I didn't belong to. I heard laughter, loud and jarring. I looked over and froze. There he was, 2 tables away, laughing with her. The necklace he gave her gleamed like a tiny dagger. I suddenly felt all 7 years of my life had worn her smile instead of my own. I stood and walked out, shaking. The air outside was sharp and cold against my skin, but at least it wasn't fake. I sat in the park across the street, watching leaves fall. Everything felt slow, like that chilly breeze carried me away too. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see her walking towards me, her expression guarded. I couldn't believe it. She sat next to me, awkwardly searching for words. She looked nervous, human even. She apologized quietly. Her voice trembled, not proud or smug. It made me angry that I wasn't angrier. She told me how they met, how long it had been, everything I hadn't known for months. My hands balled into fists. But then she said something shocking. He barely talked about me, like I was already gone to him before I knew. I laughed brokenly, bitterly. She flinched at the sound. I didn't care. It felt like all my pain bubbled into that one mean laugh. She got up abruptly, her words trailing off. I watched her walk away, wishing I'd said something to hurt her more. The sun started to set as I stayed frozen there, thinking about every wasted date, promise and lie he gave us both. But my thoughts shifted. Why waste? They chose to betray me. I didn't need to keep holding their poison in. I pulled myself up and started walking, leaving that bench, leaving all their mess behind. The chill in the air didn't bother me anymore. I realized what I wanted wasn't revenge. It was the freedom to forget them both, to make room for something better. Bright lights from passing cars reminded me life keeps going. I wasn't stuck in their betrayal anymore. I went back home, the silence sharper than before. But for once, I wasn't scared of what it meant. When I climbed into bed, the sheets felt cold, but honest. No pretending anymore, just me, rebuilding, one small step at a time. I woke up early, the first sunrise after months that didn't feel heavy. Maybe today could really be mine. I found an old journal tucked away in my desk drawer and started writing. It felt good, the words felt freeing. And as I closed the journal, I smiled, small but real. Finally, I could see a way forward. When I walked outside, the sun was shining for the first time, brighter than I remembered. It felt like life had color again.